Hi, it's Mary Beth Decker with sacredgrove.com, where people and pets heal and connect. And I am really lucky to have Pete here today. Pete Johnson. Let me read his bio and you can see why I feel like I'm lucky to have Pete here today. So, with an esteemed career as a chief operations officer, multiple patent holder, and co-founder of a 30-plus year best-in-class international business, Peter understands the importance of knowledge, its value in the marketplace, the healing it can bring to the suffering, and the ethics it requires. I love that. As a native of Virginia Beach, Virginia, Peter grew up and still lives in the light and influence of the Edgar Cayce Foundation. With a university education and business success long achieved, Peter followed the divine nudge to combine his unique psychic skill set with his practical business acumen. Peter's primary audience is best classified as business to business. Now, hang in with me because we don't usually talk about business to business, but you're going to love what we're talking about here. Government and law enforcement agencies, insurance companies, human resource departments, law firms, and healthcare providers, among others. His services include intuitive personnel, partnership, and executive assessment, management, and selection, psychic location and evidence recovery, and strategic foresight, prediction, and analysis of energetic trends for opportunity exploration and maximization. However, today we focus on a subset of Peter's skills, namely telepathic communication at the end of life, or what Peter more easily terms mediumship for the living. Peter works on a contractual or consultant type basis with skilled nursing, memory care, home health, autism, and other private service providers to deliver unique communication services for the family members, friends, or caretakers of those approaching the end of life, or others who are permanently or temporarily unable to communicate for themselves. This includes the unconscious, persons on the spectrum, stroke victims, dementia patients, infants, and more. Be it misunderstood or troubling behaviors, final wishes, or proactively clearing any lingering question or issue before transition. Telepathic communication can be instrumental in reframing complex relationships or familial issues to enable a compassionate and healing space, not only for the person themselves, but also for the caretakers or family members that remain. Pete, welcome. Thank you for coming today.
Thank you. That's a mouthful, I know.
You know, it was, and I thought, no, but I need to say all of this. There's something magical in all those words, and I'm hoping everybody's feeling that energy that you have around what you do. So I'm going to stop for a second and say, tell us more, Pete. Tell us a little bit more before I ask questions.
I have a general focus of the other work that I do, which I find quite rewarding, particularly that with the law enforcement and other. But admittedly, the work that I find the most gratifying and fulfilling is this, the telepathic work, particularly for those that are at the end of life. As you know, I both know you can communicate telepathically with all life. From pets and people and, many people say plants and all the other stuff. You can do all of that. However, you'll see so many shows nowadays that are mediumship based. And I always thought, well, it feels like it's so after the fact when you're trying to help somebody move through grief or to help them resolve something when the person is no longer here. And it was actually my father-in-law, when he began to develop dementia, I had my mediumistic skills, they already existed, and I used them to a certain extent, but I realized that my father-in-law, who was still with us and still is, was beginning to communicate with me. And that's when I was like, okay. It was a bit of a twist for me, but I liked it. Because he was still able to communicate, but there were things going on that as he found himself deeper and deeper in dementia, he couldn't voice. And for anybody that knows of the heartbreaking necessity of caring for somebody in this and moving towards the end of life, having practical solutions and answers and understanding, particularly of what's really going on with people, it doesn't make it any easier on your heart, but it can make it much easier consciously as you deal with this over a protracted period of time. So this is where I consider it, although I'm desperately sad to really have lost the companionship and golf buddy that my father-in-law was, his let's put it, willingness to kind of step in and realize he could, on some level, his higher self realized he could communicate with me. That's what began this journey. And that's when I realized, well, okay, I can communicate with him. What about somebody else who can't communicate, like an autistic kid or something like that? And that's where this kind of whole area that I termed mediumship for the living developed.
Perfect. So I've got some cool questions I want to ask, and we're going to talk a little bit, and then I want to hear a story. But so what about a person's religious beliefs? How do those affect the final days?
Well, that's tough. A lot of people kind of, I have never been afraid to ask any questions. I will make every type of joke known to God and man. I love all these types of stuff. I have always been rather irreverent in the way that I lived anyway. And it was the fact that I realized that, there is a particular energy that you encounter when somebody is really desperately fearful. You kind of get in there and there's just a buzz to it. And I'm sure you know what that is. It's just a buzz. And when you sometimes investigate it, you'll discover that, it could be some of those regrets are making them wonder where they're going to end up. If they had incredibly very strong Catholic upbringings at time, that can put a lot of, there's some judgment in what you're going to do and where you're going to end up and this type of stuff. A lot of religions, a lot of very fundamentalist people also will have beliefs that, there's an exit and it's either up or down in the elevator. There's no other choice. And a lot of people think that, well, I did this 20 years ago. I really didn't think about it that much, but wow, I'm at the end. That might have meant a lot. And my elevator's going down. I'm afraid. And this is where, it really plays, it plays into their ability to kind of let go and enter that labor of leaving, because, no matter what the issue is that they think they may have done or did or didn't do, or whatever it was that they're holding on to, this guilt or whatever it may be, it is affecting their ability to kind of see past, to see the light, because they don't see the light. They just see, damnation, punishment, something like that. So this is where it's a large part sometimes of what I will ask. Some of the questions I ask the family going in is, were there particular religious beliefs? Were there things that were here? And then as I kind of step in, I will kind of make that inquiry that, I will, and I'm sure you've heard the stories, and I'm sure you just spring with your animals, it kind of at the end of the bed, quote unquote, when people are close, there's that light, always at the end. And there's usually a good 3-4 people that I can discern that are waiting. They have their arms outstretched, just waiting for the person to take the hand. And a lot of times when they're caught up in the fear of what's going to happen, they're not looking that way. They're looking down. So I try to encourage people, I understand that you may feel this, that, or the other, but I promise you there's no retribution. There's no damnation. There's none of this. From my experience, it is light. You'll have the chance to review whatever it is you think you worried about, maybe have a better chance or do it differently the next time, but there's no condemnation. There's none of this. You're just going to go to the light, be able to see something and view it from a different perspective and say, geez, maybe I could have done that differently. I'll do that differently next time, maybe. But you're going to the light. There's nothing but light and love when you cross. That's all that exists. And I've even gotten to the point on a couple of occasions where some people, they were really, and I said in my communication, I promise you, I haven't seen a flame once. I promise you, I have never seen a flame. I have just and only seen a beautiful, welcoming light. And there's your mom, and there's your brother, and there's the other stuff. And you kind of do it that way. And that's where when we try to work. But that religiosity, particularly very polarized religiosity of heaven and hell type thinking, typically that person will also have been very polarized in life. Everything was black and white. There was no gray area for these people in a lot of cases. And that can make these final days difficult for them also. But that's where we kind of step in and say, you know what, hey, I promise you, there's something different here. And I try to, sometimes it will take more than one talk to them, but it works out, but it can. And that's why I hope that people listening to this and others will realize that, just maybe consider that there might be another option. It's not just one or the other, and help people do that, because then it won't tie you up. It won't confuse you at the end.
Thank you. Well, I hope everybody enjoyed this as much as I did. And Peter, thank you for taking the time to talk to me. And I'll say best wishes. And
thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity.
All righty.